All right, hello people from the internet. Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. The time has come for me to make a non-gameplay video. We are in Thunderdome right now, but it's because I always start tutorials for the purposes of my non-gameplay videos. And this time I decided to start a sprint that I will finish at a later point, not immediately, but eventually I'll do this sprint. Today I'm going to be talking about gods. And I'm going to start with Ashenzari. I'm not going to talk about all gods, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into weekly series where I talk about everything that the god has to offer. You know, kind of like the god tier list that I did a while ago. Um, but instead of it being a tier list, I'm gonna take the same approach that I took for consumables and for spells. And I'm just gonna tell you what I think about the god. Like I'm gonna show you the descriptions. I'm gonna talk about general gameplay lines that you should consider when keeping these gods in mind. You know, like if you wanna go a certain god, you know, if you wanna maximize your chances of winning, you might want to go the correct god for your build or the other way around. Just a quick example, not related to Ashenzari. If I am on D1 or D2 and I get like 6 shops, because you know that kind of happens sometimes, it's very likely that I will go Gozak because Gozak gives me crazy amounts of money so that I can buy crazy items that just generated in my game. If I survive for a very short period of time, Ghostack will give me a very significant power spike. Yeah, that's just like a small example for Ghostack that I'll probably repeat when I make the Ghostack video. But for now, Ashenzari. While it seems inconceivable that the divine could be shackled, Ashenzari is just that, bound to the sky for eternity. The unbudging god is all-knowing, all-seeing. Devoted worshippers are allowed to grasp shreds of this knowledge and foresight, but be warned, to Ashenzari, power and blessing and curse are all the same thing. Ashenzari is, in my opinion, the strongest god in the game that you can actually pick. Um, Ignis is more powerful in the early game only, but you cannot just like say, "Hey, I'm gonna go Ignis now." You need to get Ignis off a Faded Altar. That's the only way to get Ignis, unless you start as in Dracolite. Um, with Ashenzari, you don't have that issue. Ashenzari provides you with very powerful things from the very beginning of the game. You get at 1 pip of Piety, you get your entire inventory identified for the remainder of the game, for as long as you stay above 1 pip of piety, which is not very difficult to do. You are immune to exploration traps. You have clarity eventually. Ashensari gives you a lot of really useful passive things that pretty much any crawl character wants, any crawl player wants. So, let's see. Powers. Ashenzari exhorts followers to curse their possessions, periodically offering these curses to worshippers as they explore. Cursed equipment cannot be enchanted and can only be removed by shattering it forever. However, these curses do improve specific skills. Sorry. They also please Ashenzari, who will reveal the invisible and grant clarity of mind. Ashenzari likes it when you bind yourself with curses. Ashenzari's powers are not affected by the invocations skill. So, Ashenzari's powers, well, we see them in overview. Warns you of distant threats and treasures. So it gives you warning, which is a property, a very rare property nowadays in Crawl, that lets you know whenever there is a monster through a wall or something. Um, Reveals the structure of the dungeon to use like passive mapping. This is probably the least useful thing that Shansari provides, but it can still be nice sometimes if you get shafted, for example. Nah, if it's not gonna do anything if you get shafted because protects you from malevolent surprises. If you get teleported or if you teleport, you might be able to just like find a choke point or a corridor or the stairs to escape a certain situation. But this is also like very low impact. Um, Shows you where the magical portals lie. This is nice. You don't have to use magic mapping whenever you enter a level with a timed portal, a portal bolt. It can be pretty good. Ashenzari protects you from malevolent surprises. We have already talked about that a little bit. This gives you complete and total immunity to exploration traps. You're not gonna get shafted. You're not gonna get teleported. You're not gonna get marked. It's pretty sweet to be completely protected from exploration traps. It's, in my opinion, one of the strongest things that Ashenzari has, because exploration traps can be a significant threat to your character, especially early in the game. The more the game goes on, the least dangerous it is for a character to be exposed to exploration traps, because the more the game goes on, the more resources you have and stuff like that. Um, Ashenzari identifies your possessions. Yeah, this, as I already mentioned, fully identifies everything that there is in the game. Like, you will never see an item that is not in a shop that is unidentified. So if you see something in the floor, it's gonna be identified. It's really sweet. Ashenzari reveals the unseen. Yeah, this is scrying. Well, it's not really scrying. I think it used to let you see through walls, but that was removed rather recently. Reveals the unseen. What does that do? Reveals the unseen. Does it let you see through Fogum? That's not really. Oh, no, no. It gives you see invisible. That's what it is. Ashenzari gives you see invisible. Ashenzari used to give you the ability to see through Fogum, and it also let you see through walls. Fortunately, that was removed because it was more of a nerf to the player than a buff. It made for some very confusing situations being able to see through Fogum, because when you can see a monster, you are so conditioned by pretty much any other experience in the game to think that the monster can see you and therefore can also harm you, that you can read a scroll fogo and you can like make some plays assuming that the monster that you see can attack you when it cannot, because it cannot see you but you can see it. So I'm very glad that was removed from Ashenzari's kit. But yeah, having seen Visible from Ashenzari is pretty nice, and Clarity. Clarity is kind of a great value replacement um, to willpower. I would absolutely still prefer to have willpower over clarity, but clarity is nice in case you don't have willpower. This will protect you from being put to sleep, being mesmerized, being confused, and that's pretty much it. All those three things. Um, so yeah. Oh, being berserked against your will. That's also a thing that clarity prevents against. Or like, yeah, clarity protects you from. Mm, so these are all things that Ashenzari does. Um, Interestingly enough, there's nothing here about what's probably the most noticeable, most powerful thing that Ashenzari offers you, which is um, the fact that the curses that you apply to your gear improve specific skills. Um, these curses, you get to choose them. Ashenzari gives you a curse, and then you can choose on whether or not you actually want to apply it to something that you are currently using, or you can just ignore it and wait for another one. Mm, my personal recommendation is to curse as much as possible in the early game so that you get to the skills, because these are really good in the early game. You want to have them pretty much as soon as possible to avoid getting shafted as much as possible, or missing portal bolts, and having full ID of your gear to maximize your chances of surviving nasty early game encounters. Ashenzari gives you all of that, but you have to curse your stuff. The only way to gain piety with Ashenzari is to curse your stuff. You get 6 pips of piety when the entirety of the items that you can wear is cursed. That doesn't mean the entirety of the items you're currently wearing. It means all your inventory slots that you can equip need to be cursed for you to have 6 pips of piety with Ashenzari. The amount of piety that you have also enhances the curses. Um, So more piety, better curses. Um, so yeah, you definitely benefit a lot from cursing as much as possible. Um, I think that it is not a terrible idea to curse things with Ashenzari as soon as possible with pretty much almost any curses that land on your lap. I will just like not take a curse if it's something crazy like range combat and hexes, for example, on a character that is using a sword. Yeah, that character will not really be juggling between hexes and range combat, so that curse is completely worthless. And I would put it still on something that I know that I will upgrade away from very quickly. But it is not the kind of curse that you are going to put on, I don't know, the Scepter of Torment. If you are using maces, you're not gonna put a completely worthless curse on your end game gear. Um, so yeah, that's part of how my reasoning towards curses goes whenever I'm playing Ashenzari. Um, but yeah, do not be afraid of cursing your stuff because something that I've heard from people whenever I talk about Ashensari is that it is dangerous or it is difficult for new players to play Ashensari because they don't know what to curse and how to curse and when to curse. Just do it as soon as you can, pretty much. Even if it's a completely worthless curse, it's gonna be okay in the early game. And the more the game progresses, the more you can afford to destroy your stuff with bad curses or to destroy the items with maybe not so terrible curses, but you just got a significantly better item already you want to replace it with. Go ahead and do it. Yeah, Ashensari is very powerful. Very, very powerful indeed. I absolutely believe that Ashensari is the most powerful god in the game right now because it makes you ridiculously powerful. Ashensari does not have any panic buttons like other gods that we will be talking about later in the series, but Ashensari is still incredibly strong. And then there's the Wrath. I guess we can talk about the Wrath a bit. This is not something that I will in general have a lot of experience with because abandoning gods as a whole is not a good idea in crawl as it is nowadays, except for Ignis. Ignis is the one exception where Ignis is built, designed in such a way that it is part of the normal progression of being a worshipper of Ignis to eventually abandon Ignis once you run out of juice. But I'll talk more about Ignis in further instances of this series when I get to Ignis, of course. Ashensari does not appreciate abandonment. That's a recurring trend for most gods, and will call down fearful punishments on disloyal followers. Those who abandon Ashensari will immediately have their curses shattered, destroying whichever items they imbued with divine wisdom. This already is pretty bad because it means that what is probably your best gear is done. It's turned into dust. So you're left naked against the world. Um, that's already a sufficient deterrent to not abandon Ashensari. Thereafter, Ashensari's wrath is constant and unrelenting for its duration. Victims will find their skills impaired and their enemies divinely guided, never losing track of them, never ending the hunt. Ashensari's wrath lasts for a relatively long duration. Yes, I don't know for sure if it's the case with the current iteration of Ashensari, but with the previous one, the wrath, which was pretty much the same as this, lasted for the equivalent of you gaining 2 experience levels. Um, it was a rougher rat before because I think it just entirely prevented you from gaining experience, which was obviously insane. Um, Even later in the game, that was obviously insane. This seems more mild, but it is still brutal to just lose the entirety of your gear. Do not abandon Ashensari, do not abandon most gods. It is a bad idea. If you have to ask if it's the correct thing to do or if it's good for you to abandon a god, the answer is no. It is something that you probably should never do. And if you are considering doing it, you probably know what you're doing beyond the scope of these videos that I make, these non-playthrough videos. So I guess you are perfectly qualified to ignore what I'm saying here. But I would still recommend you very heavily against abandoning any god except for Ignis, and maybe other ones. But I'll get to them when I'll get to them. So yeah, this was Ashenzari. If you have any questions or comments about Ashenzari, you can feel free to leave me a comment on this video. I would appreciate it a lot if you want to tell me about how to take this series forward. Like, if you want to make any suggestions as well, I would appreciate it. I will be looking at the comments and I will be trying to reply to all comments as much as possible. I'll try to elaborate on whatever doubts that may arise from this video. And yeah, I hope that you have a good time with Crawl and a good time with my YouTube channel. And I appreciate you all for the continued support. And thank you to my supporters on Patreon, Anthony Emergence, Blink and Die, Dulos Ball, Enon, and Graphophilia. Thank you so much for your very generous contributions. I appreciate them a lot. They help me continue doing what I'm doing, and I hope that you get as much value as you desire from your contributions.